12:04 UTC, August 11, 2025, the still waters off Scarborough Shoal erupt into disorder. Barely 12 nautical miles from the reef, the Philippine Coast Guard vessel BRP Saluan steams north, shielding to civilian relief boats carrying fuel and food for fishermen. Chasing from astern, Chinese Coast Guard cutter CCG 3100 bears down fast. Its water cannons unleash arcs of pressurized spray lashing across Saluan's bow like liquid whips. At this distance, those jets strike with the power of sledgehammers, able to smash windows or hurl sailors overboard, but the standoff is about to escalate. Sliding in from the port side, a massive outline takes shape upon Navy destroyer HULL 164. Unlike a cutter, this warship is designed for combat, not crowd dispersal, and it's cutting through disputed waters at speed. The three ships now race into a tightening triangle of open ocean, the CCG captain, fixated on intercepting. Saluan yanks the wheel hard. The destroyer, blind to the move, maintains its course. Two vessels, same trajectory, seconds from collision. Out here, there's no margin for error and no simple reason why ships flying the same flag could be about to collide. Scarborough Shoal may appear to be nothing more than a shallow reef ring in turquoise water, but in the South China Sea, it's a live fuse. Lying just 124 nautical miles off Luzon, well, within the Philippine Exclusive Economic Zone, UNCLOS would clearly classify it as Philippine territory. Yet since 2012, Chinese ships have seized and held it. Since then, Beijing enforces its claim with rotating Coast Guard cutters, militia trawlers, and whenever it wants to flex frontline warships. Neither Manila nor Beijing is backing away. On August 11th, Saluan's orders were simple: escort to relief craft into nearby fishing grounds, drop supplies, and return to base. But any Philippine vessel venturing near Scarborough is shadowed often aggressively by Chinese patrols. That's why CCG 3100 appeared. As for Destroyer 164, it wasn't there for humanitarian work. It's A-Type 05 to D Luyang 3 class guided missile destroyer, bristling with the LS cells, anti-ship weapons, and long-range radar. Normally, it runs with a formation. That day, it lingered near the cutter, likely enforcing a blockade layer. In principle, ships from the same fleet coordinate to prevent accidents. But with high speeds, frayed tempers, and silent radios, rules collapse quickly. The instant Saluan broke clear of the reef's shadow, the chase began. CCG 3104, a 1,500-ton patrol cutter, pushed its diesels hard, spray boiling at its bow as it closed. Its quarry, the Philippine patrol ship escorting to slow civilian craft. The mission was plain harass and intimidate. The water cannon thundered, sweeping Saluan's decks with pressure strong enough to sweep sailors into the sea. In these clashes, cannons are Beijing's tool of choice. Officially non-lethal, in reality they smash glass, tear off antennas, and flood exposed decks. For Saluan's crew, every blast meant ducking behind shields and bracing against the roll. What made this pursuit different was the cutter's attack line. Instead of trailing, the Chinese skipper swung wide to port, cutting across Saluan's bow, a textbook interception tactic. At nearly 20 knots, mistakes are fatal. Saluan's radio calls drew silence. The Chinese cutter pressed harder, sirens wailing beneath the cannon's roar. The Philippine crew held steady, avoiding moves that could be twisted as hostile. Then came the mistake. Out of the spray, the destroyer loomed. The CCG's intercept path wasn't only slicing across Saluan, it was drifting directly into the destroyer's track. Fixated on its target, the cutter's captain pressed forward, blind to the narrowing gap. By the time the destroyer's crew realized and signaled, the space was already gone. The cutter's bow, angled across the destroyer's hull, had set both ships on a collision course. Port side first, the cutter slammed forward. The crash was violent. Steel at the bow folded inward, collapsing like tin struck by a hammer. The forward gun emplacement bent in its mount. Its shield warped under the blow, internal partitions moaned and fractured, For the destroyer, the damage was far lighter. Long jagged gouges streaked her port plating, paint stripped down to raw metal. The jolt, however, carried through her frame, rattling fixtures and knocking crew from their footing. On the cutter's foredeck, several sailors had been visible just seconds before, watching the chase unfold. At the moment of impact, they disappeared, hurled backward by the sudden stop. Whether they were hurt or simply tossed out of sight wasn't clear. The first moments after contact were pandemonium. The destroyer's siren thundered, the cutter's engines went silent. Over open channel, the Philippine crew immediately offered help, medical aid, man overboard checks, damage control. Every broadcast was met with silence. The destroyer eased back, slowly veering away. The cutter listed forward, bow buried and motionless in the swell. Unseaworthy was the polite description. Operationally, it was finished. What began as a Chinese pursuit ended not with a show of force, but with one of their own patrol vessels disabled right in front of the very ship they sought to cow. On board BRP Saluan, the mood was disbelief. Only moments earlier, the crew had braced for another salvo from the water cannon. Instead, they watched a Chinese cutter ram into its own Navy destroyer. The collision's deep metallic boom rolled across the waves. Through binoculars, Suluan's officers saw deck crew on the CCG vessel stumble, cling to railings, and in some cases vanish behind twisted plating. Unlike warships, the cutter's sailors lacked heavy protective gear. At that velocity, a sudden stop can fling a man meters across deck. Within seconds, Suluan's radio operator broke in on the open frequency. Chinese vessel, we can provide medical support. We can assist in recovery. Silence. The plea was repeated twice more in both English and Mandarin. Again, no reply. The destroyer's crew seemed focused inward, running inspection teams along the port side to check scars. On the cutter, sailors gathered aft, keeping distance from the collapsed bow, moving carefully and slow. For the Filipinos, the refusal to accept help was telling. Taking aid from the very target they had been harassing would be politically humiliating. Better to manage alone even if time was critical for any wounded. By then, the relief boats had slipped farther off, well away from the drama. For them, the task should have been simple: deliver fuel and food to fishermen. Instead, they witnessed a geopolitical mishap unfold in real time. And for the Chinese crews, reality was undeniable. Their high-speed intercept ended with friendly steel colliding with friendly steel under foreign eyes. Within hours, Manila made its stance public. Coast Guard spokesman Commodore J. Tariella condemned the act as reckless and absurd, charging the Chinese cutter's captain with violating the international collision prevention rules. He stressed the maneuver was not only dangerous, but it endangered lives on all three ships and risked spiraling into wider crisis. Tariella also confirmed Suluan's immediate offer of assistance. We offered medical support, search and rescue. They declined. That says everything, he told reporters. For Manila, the rejection bolstered their claim Beijing would endanger lives rather than lose face. In Beijing, the narrative diverged sharply. Coast Guard spokesman Gan Yu acknowledged a maritime encounter, but avoided any mention of a crash. He described the patrol as routine monitoring, pressing, shadowing, and blocking, framed as lawful enforcement inside what China deems its territorial waters. Chinese state outlets released no images of the damaged cutter. By the following day, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. personally weighed in, promising that Philippine ships will keep sailing these waters. We will not be stopped. These are our fishermen, our seas, and our responsibility, President Marcos Jr. declared at a press briefing. For outside observers, the contrast was striking. Manila described a reckless miscalculation that nearly caused disaster. Beijing framed it as a standard patrol with nothing unusual to report. Diplomatic channels stayed quiet, no hotline conversations, no joint inquiry, no official naval statements. In the South China Sea, silence after a clash often says as much as the clash itself, and this silence was deafening. Scarborough Shoal is more than a contested reef. It's a strategic pawn in one of the world's busiest and most vital waterways. Sitting inside the Philippines' 200 nautical mile exclusive economic zone, it has nonetheless been under Chinese control since 2012, enforced by a near-constant blockade of Coast Guard ships and militia boats. In 2016, an international tribunal under UNCLOS ruled Beijing's claims unlawful. China dismissed the verdict outright. For Manila, every patrol near Scarborough is a signal the Philippines will not yield its rights under international law. For Beijing, every interception is a reminder that actual control lies with the ships at sea, not with rulings in The Hague. The August 11th incident is just the latest chapter in a long list of confrontations. In recent years, Chinese cutters have fired military-grade lasers to dazzle Philippine sailors, blocked supply runs to Spratly outposts, and rammed fishing vessels. Beijing consistently frames these acts as the defense of sovereignty. Scarborough is especially volatile because of its location near critical trade routes. The South China Sea carries more than 60% of global maritime commerce worth about $3.4 trillion a year. Oil tankers, bulk carriers, and container ships pass through these waters every day. Any conflict here would reverberate far beyond Manila. And Beijing, hitting the global economy hard, the military stakes are just as serious. China's expanding network of fortified artificial islands complete with runways, missile batteries, and radar sites gives the PLA Navy the ability to watch, and if it chooses, dominate huge sections of the sea. A militarized Scarborough Shoal would bring that reach even closer to the Philippine mainland. Analysts describe this as gray zone warfare, asserting dominance without triggering open conflict. Cannons instead of bullets, ramming instead of missile fire. The collision on August 11th wasn't deliberate, but it unfolded inside that dangerous game, where every maneuver is designed to probe the other side's willpower. For Beijing, the event will likely vanish into silence. For Manila, it's already logged as evidence, a reminder that even routine harassment can spiral into real peril. For the sailors involved, it will remain unforgettable. At sea, you don't forget the instant when steel meets steel. The South China Sea has seen decades of close calls, jets screaming past cockpits, patrol ships crossing dangerously close, fishing boats crushed in the dark. But it's rare for the threat to turn inward. August 11th showed that in the rush to intimidate, even disciplined fleets can stumble. So here's the question. Was this an accident born of overconfidence or a risky intimidation ploy that backfired? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you'd like to support the channel more directly, consider joining our fleet. Members get loyalty badges, priority replies, and help us keep bringing real maritime stories to light. Click join on our channel page and climb aboard. Thanks for watching. If you like this breakdown, hit the like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next deep dive into the world's most tense encounters at sea. And remember, out here, it's not the size of your ship that matters, it's the direction you're sailing. See you in the next one.